Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all having a fantastic evening. Tonight I'm going to be doing a review of an American superhero film. It's kind of like Kick-Ass, but it was a little bit more serious. So we all know about all the comic book heroes coming out in the cinemas. So this one is a hell of a lot different. So it was released in 2010, directed by James Gunn, and this movie is called Super. And the story to Super is as follows. The movie world has had more than its fair share of superheroes. Superman, Batman, Captain America, the Avenger, the Green Lantern, Iron Man, and Thor. And that dude from Kick-Ass, to name a few. Have they finally met their match? Super is the sudden kick in the crutch this summer of square-jawed superheroes never knew it needed. When Frank's wife leaves him for Jacques, played by Kevin Bacon, a seductive psychopathic drug dealer, Frank, played by Rainn Wilson, is transformed, and quicker than you can litter an appropriate expletive, the Crimson Bolt is born. With a super red handmade supersuit, a wrench, and a crazed sidekick named Bolty, played by Ellen Page, the Crimson Bolt beats his way through the mean streets of crime in the hope of saving his wife Sarah, played by Liv Tyler. That is if she wants to be saved. The rules were written a long time ago. You are not supposed to molest children, cut lines, or key cars. If you do, prepare to face the wrath of the Crimson Bolt. Now, that's a pretty ordinary synopsis, reading it off the back, so I'll give you my own brief rundown. It stars Rainn Wilson from the TV's Office, and his name is Frank, and he's married to his wife named Sarah, played by Liv Tyler. Now, it appears to be a happy marriage. Liv Tyler's character used to be a drug addict, but she's now recovered. But then she goes back into her drug ways when she meets Jacques, who's a psychopathic drug dealer played by Kevin Bacon. Now, Jacques pretty much steals Sarah away from Frank and gets her back on the drugs. So Frank is obviously distraught. Jacques has just completely walked over him. He's a really sort of weak individual. And then he goes into a deep depression. He's thinking about things, and then he goes into a comic book store and he sees all these superhero comics, and he kind of thinks to himself, why hasn't the real world had a superhero? Why does it all exist in comics? So he gets an idea that he wants to clean up the streets of crime and in an attempt get his wife back. So he needs a name for himself and he needs a suit. He ends up hand making that red suit. He gets a wrench for a weapon, and he ends up naming himself the Crimson Bolt. And now the Crimson Bolt is going around, he's by himself to start with, and he's taking care of business, and he gets on the news. And a lot of people just dismiss him as a psychopath. This is where he gets the interest of a girl who works at the comic book store, played by Ellen Page, and she wants to be the Crimson Bolt's sidekick, and she's a psychopath, this woman. And so Bolty is her name, and they both team up, and they are going to try and win back Frank's wife and save her, if she wants to be saved. So I'm not going to tell you what happens from that point on. It's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, but hopefully that synopsis makes you want to go out there and see it if you haven't done so already. And I do apologise, my nose is very itchy. So what I thought of this movie. I was a little bit skeptical coming in. I'm not a massive fan of superhero films, and I wasn't a massive fan of Kick-Ass. Now, yes, Kick-Ass was good, but it didn't really connect to me, and it didn't really, it wasn't very memorable as far as I'm concerned. So I just thought that this was going to be another rip-off Kick-Ass. But I was pleasantly surprised, and I actually prefer this much more than Kick-Ass. Now, I actually thought that, yes, it's a superhero kind of film, but it's a much more serious one, and it kind of feels like it's not so much a film about a superhero, it's a film about mental illness and someone who's just on the verge of a breakdown. He's got nothing left and he wants to take the law into his own hands, and it's kind of a delusion that he is a superhero. So there is surprisingly a lot of depth to this film, and that's why I liked it much more than Kick-Ass, because it just had a much more serious message in it. Now, the acting was good. Rainn Wilson, I didn't know how he would go in a more serious role, but he actually played a very interesting character, because although he could act serious, he kind of brings his comedy background into it, and it makes for dark humour, in that some pretty shocking things happen, but he makes it funny. So I really like the idea that he was cast as the main character. Then you've got Ellen Page, who's brilliant in everything she does. She plays the sidekick who's completely insane and very, very funny at the same time. And then you've got people like Liv Tyler, who played the drug addict fairly well, although it was a fairly easy role. You got Jacques, played by Kevin Bacon, fantastic role. And Michael Rooker was his sidekick. So quite a few very well-known actors in the film, which helped it a lot as well. The violence is shocking. Be very careful going into it, because I wasn't expecting just how graphic and brutal the violence would be. And so if you want something that's a little bit a step above Kick-Ass, Kick-Ass was violent enough, but I thought the Kick-Ass violence was a little bit stylized and glorifying, whereas the violence in this film is actually quite brutal and realistic. So I actually feel that this is a more hardcore version of Kick-Ass, both in the violence and the message. The ending was fantastic. I love the ending. I wasn't expecting exactly what happened. I don't want to spoil anything, but it does go a different direction than what you first think. There's hardcore drug use. As I said, the violence is there. There's a sex scene, a really funny sex scene, but a sex scene nonetheless. So if you're easily offended, I wouldn't get the film. But if you like your films that are a little bit different, and if you're sick of all these superhero films and you want something a little bit more serious, a little bit more brutal, this one is definitely up your alley. I preferred this, as I said, over Kick-Ass. I just feel that it was a more mature version of Kick-Ass. So I'm going to give this 4 out of 5. I feel that it needed to jump another step in order to get a perfect score, but I just feel that it kind of held itself in and it didn't quite go to that next level. So 4 out of 5, definitely a very good movie, and I'm highly recommending it. I actually loved it, so I'll be watching this again and again. 4 out of 5. If you like Kick-Ass, then chances are you're going to really like this one. Alright guys, that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, take care, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.